Welcome to My Forever Home, the podcast. I'm Frances Cosway and I've helped hundreds of people create forever homes. I can't wait to share the journey with you. So let's start. Hi everyone and welcome to Your Forever Home, the podcast. We are now up to episode 10, actually episode 11 of the Bathroom Design Essentials podcast season. And today I'm really happy to welcome back Cathryn and Trisha to talk all about baths. Now, as I did the intro for Cathryn and Trisha in the last couple of episodes, because we've gone through quite a lot together already, they both work at Reece Bathroom Life in Brighton, Victoria, and they are a wealth of knowledge around all things bathroom. So I've invited them back today, and luckily they've said yes. And today we're going to talk about all things baths. Very important thing to consider in terms of spatial planning. I think that for baths in particular, we see people either buy a bath that's more often than not really too big for the space, and that has a big impact on the visual aesthetic of the space overall. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but there's a lot of other things in terms of buying criteria that we're going to go through today. So welcome, Cathryn and Trisha.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
Good. It's good. I feel very privileged that you take time out of your day. I know that you're both so busy, and we were just talking offline about how incredibly busy it is at the moment. And even though we're in March, it's sort of this post-COVID time. We were just talking about, is it going to slow down over winter like it normally does, or are we going to see a completely different seasonality this year just because we've come out of the COVID lockdown? So I know you're so busy, so thank you so much for making time today.
Pleasure.
All right, so let's get stuck into it, all about baths and how you're going to select your bath. I think the first thing I wanted to chat it to you about today was the different types of baths available. I mean, the obvious ones for me are the freestanding, and then you've got your normal hob bath, but walk through some of the other bath selections that are available in terms of types.
Mm-hmm. So there are definitely the freestanding baths. They come in a few different materials. We may get back to that a little bit.
We'll talk about materials, yes.
And then, yes, your hob baths, but there's also what's called back to wall, which is actually considered a freestanding bath, but rather than have to clean all the way around it, it just checks in to the back, to the wall, the back part, and you only have to clean around the sides and obviously the front. So that's a nice, neat way to kind of have a freestanding look without the hob part, and it can save space a bit too.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Another thing that's come out that's really quite popular, it's very new to us at the showroom here, we've just got one on display recently, is a back to corner bath. So that's also even more space saving, and they look really lovely. It's got a nice curve to it, and it's really, really gorgeous. But it checks into not only the back of the wall, but also a corner. So it's just neatly sort of sitting in the corner and, opens up the room a bit as well. And you don't have to clean around two sides.
Fantastic. That'll work really well with people that can cope with asymmetrical. Symmetrical people won't like it, but that's fine. But that's a really awesome option, exactly as you say, for space saving, and also when there are issues around getting access. So that's awesome to hear. What brand is that bath, Cathryn?
Posh Domain.
Yeah, Posh. Okay. And that's actually at your showroom, which is awesome.
It absolutely is.
Okay, good. So people can pop in. Now, just explain the difference between, I get asked this a lot, the hob bath and then the inset bath, and what the differences are around when you're having a hob bath, and also around the tile. I call it a tile lip, so that you're getting the tile going straight up to the bath. If you can just walk through some of those differences.
So an inset bath is what's installed into a hob. So they are the same, inset or a hob built bath. Mm-hmm. They used to be they used to have a lip all the way around them, so that you could tile all the way on top of the bath.
Yes.
And that would give you extra extra safety in terms of waterproofing, because it's sitting on your tiles are sitting on the bath, and there's less space for water to
Yes.
run. However, for aesthetic purposes, they're all now flat rimmed, or most of them now are flat rimmed. It just looks really much nicer than having that little lip all the way around. And it is still suitable to use as an inset bath, because you can now install flashings all the way around, and that gives you the extra protection against water runoff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think some of the confusion may be that a hob bath actually is tiled, or the hob bath sits on top of the tiles, I suppose, effectively. An inset, I think, has always been regarded as one where it's almost like an undermount, that the tiles are flush with the bath rather than sitting on top. Is that right? Or is that a different, or is that not quite accurate, that it's almost like an undermount where the tiles are meeting the bath, not sitting on top?
So inset baths can definitely be installed either with them sitting on top of the tiles, or you can flush mount them with tiles as well. So there's different terms for installation, how they're installed in a bathroom.
Okay, so I suppose for the listeners, you're buying the same type of bath. It's just how it's installed, whether you want it to be completely flush or whether you're going to have it sit on top.
Yep.
Correct.
And just in terms of the pricing, so Cathryn, you were talking about this corner. Well, how do you refer to that? Corner, back to wall, back to corner, back to corner. Is there a premium in terms of price for a bath like that?
Not really. The back to wall and the back to corner, I mean, they are freestanding baths, so they do come at a different price point to an inset bath. But they're still around about the same price point, because they are actually a freestanding bath.
Yeah.
It's not.
Look, I'm a really sorry, Cathryn.
That's okay. That's okay. So it's not a premium over an actual freestanding bath. They can sort of fit into about the same price pocket.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the back to wall, I think, because it does save a lot of space. I think the biggest problem that I find, and I said that in the intro, is that people are trying to cram a small bath or a big bath into a small space. Or I think the biggest problem I see is that they're trying to fit a freestanding bath into a space that is really not suitable. So as an example, it's a family bathroom, and I feel in a family bathroom, a 1,500 bath, and I'm 1,500 long, is really not long enough. I feel that that's a bath that you're really not going to be able to relax in. So I feel in a family bathroom, you need at least 1,700 in a bath. And then when people want a freestanding and they're trying to fit that in a space of 2 meters wide, it's just not enough space to be able to get around for cleaning. And so that back to wall can then be a really good solution. But I think that for me is one of the biggest problems. The bath is not big enough for a family bathroom. And then again, they really want a freestanding bath where they would be so much better off getting a hob bath, but they don't want that aesthetic.
And they can look really nice as well. And I think when I see like parents and they have little kids, I also kind of mention, which they seem to like, that there's a little ledge at the back of the bath, and they can kind of put their toys on there and that sort of thing. So it's not even just a practical thing. It's useful in a different way that people don't even think about. So
yeah, and just thinking about the kid thing, I can imagine little children splashing all the way down the back. Kids love to try and flood the bathroom with as much water outside of the bath as possible. And just trying to even clean that up. So it might be an amazing aesthetic, but I don't always feel that it's the most practical. And because I'm so big on functionality, I'm probably more often than not really walking through with clients around, do you really want that sort of hassle, or do you really want to compromise the size of your bath just because you want that aesthetic?
Yeah, it does.
All right. And so in terms of all the finishes available, there are lots and lots of different types of materials that you can use for your bath. I've always been quite a big fan of cast iron. It's a little bit, I think it's regarded sometimes as a bit old-fashioned. But I think once that heats up, it retains its heat so beautifully. And I know it comes at a premium price as well. People get a little bit worried about it chipping. But I feel that there's technology now that allows you to, well, at least get it repaired with cast iron. But walk through it. Let's start with cast iron, what your thoughts are on cast iron, and then go through some of the other materials that are available for baths.
Okay, so with what you're referring to as cast iron, we sort of refer to as pressed steel. So same sort of thing. But if someone...
fancy word, pressed steel.
That's what they'd find if they looked on our website, which is why I mentioned it.
Pressed steel, that's good to know. So cast iron is now called pressed steel.
Yeah. So there are different qualities of that available. So if you chose one that was in sort of a lower price point, which is fine, then that can sort of scratch and chip and that sort of thing. But if you wanted to alleviate that problem, there is a brand from Germany called Calderby, and their version of the pressed steel and the technologies that they use actually means that it's stain resistant, scratch resistant, UV resistant, so it doesn't yellow over time, that sort of thing. So it's a lot higher quality of bath. And I think for the price that they come in at too, they're really reasonable, and it's got like a 30-year warranty, so that's really good backup.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that what I love, I mean, it's also the enamel, is that it's a really beautiful smooth surface, but the fact that you can actually get them resurfaced. So for me, from a sustainability perspective, I love, and I know recently we did a bathroom, and the whole bathroom scheme revolved around her cast iron bath, which was on Feach, and the whole design scheme revolved around that. She got the internal resurfaced and the outside was really battered, and it just looked incredible.
Yeah, wow.
So I think the fact that you can really get them re-enameled and repaired is a really good sustainable story. It's almost, well, it is being upcycled effectively.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So but do they really scratch? I thought it was more that they chipped rather than scratched.
Oh, it's a bit of both. I think even just from a personal experience, I've found scratching can happen in the baths that I've sort of had, I suppose, in my life.
Okay.
As well. So, yeah, the stronger material would be the preference if you can.
Of course. So why would someone buy the enamel? Okay, let's call it pressed steel. The pressed steel over an acrylic bath, which is obviously a very, very popular material. What are some of the advantages with the pressed steel?
Well, I think the pressed steel is stronger. I would also think that because there is that opportunity for it not to scratch and not to chip, that's definitely a big one. With the acrylic baths, it's sort of not really any way around it. I don't think they will scratch, or
once it's scratched, it's scratched.
Yeah, that stays there and you can't repair that. From retaining heat, the pressed steel, once it is warm, would probably retain the heat a bit more. There's another sort of option there with luxury limestone that kind of retains heat even more than that, but we can get into that a bit further down the track. So I'd say just from a strength and integrity of the material point of view would definitely be a good benefit.
Absolutely. And that's always been my thought about why you'd go for pressed steel. And for me, I always regard that as a more premium product than an acrylic bath. So let's talk about acrylic then, because that's, is that, because I was going, but is it the most popular material that people get their baths in, the acrylic?
It is very popular, and I was just going to mention as well that with acrylic, over the last sort of 10 to 15 years, acrylic's actually really improved in its quality as well. So I guess people would be familiar with baths yellowing over time in the past. So the composition of the acrylic now is at a standard where it's called like sanitary grade acrylic, and therefore it's not meant to yellow. So that material has improved a lot over the last sort of 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, most materials are improving significantly, even though they've been around for a long time. They're just improving the composition and so forth. We're seeing it all the time in lots of things. So acrylic being very lightweight can be really, really cost effective. So what are some of the other advantages with, choosing acrylic?
Did you want to take that one?
Acrylic is just a lot more versatile in terms of being able to mold it in a lot of different shapes and sizes. So the depth, if with taller people, if they want a really deep soaking bath, that is more achievable through acrylic. So acrylic is however, steel baths, they can't really make them too deep because they kind of press the steel. Whereas with acrylic, as you know, it's a more malleable surface and can be molded as well. So yes, acrylic is definitely more lighter in weight. It can be transported easily. So almost 90% of the baths we sell now are acrylic. But however, for younger children, children using toys in the bath, etc., we highly recommend those pressed steel baths, with a baked enamel, because they are the strongest and sturdiest.
Yeah.
For adults, to use in your ensuite, you can definitely do acrylic. And a lot of times people who only want to invest in a bath just for resale value, which is declined over the years. However, a lot of people still do, just to have it aesthetically looking nice in the bathroom, but it would never get used. In those scenarios, you can then use an acrylic bath because it's just going to be there, just going to sit there and not get used.
Yeah, not get used. It does happen that people have an additional bathroom, of course, and then the bath is really never used. So I've done a few of those renovations myself, not me personally, but for clients, where it's just there because the space is there.
Yeah.
So look, that is an issue, I think, with acrylic, that with kids particularly, they do scratch. And as you said earlier, Cathryn, you can't fix the scratching. So I think this is where, again, we're all about forever homes. It's worth investing in a really strong material, particularly if it is a family home, and more often than not, the forever homes are a family home, so that getting a bath out and replacing it, that's no easy feat. So it really is worth investing on getting a really good surface.
Absolutely. Another material now that is repairable is called solid surface, which a lot of freestanding baths are made out of. So solid surface is similar to stone. It's crushed minerals or crushed stone mixed with resin. And that makes it really non-porous and really dense. So it's kind of like Caesar stone, engineered stone.
Yeah.
So imagine Caesar stone made into a bath. So those ones are pretty indestructible. You can't really scratch them, chip them. However, if you manage to do that, and you can still repair, sand any scratches off, and also repair edges. So it's a very dense material, non-porous, and super easy to clean. The only thing to be mindful about is they are very heavy.
I was just about to say that. It's like stone.
Yeah, so it will definitely need more support in the floor. You'll need to obviously speak to an engineer about floor support, etc. So for example, a 1700 long bath weighs about 100 kilos when it's empty. Once it's installed and you have water, if you fill it in with water, which is about 200 liters, and then you put humans in it, it will be very, very heavy. So
just as a comparison, so that's 200 kilos on its own. Have you got how much a normal acrylic bath would be? How much that weighs?
About 50. Max is 50.
15 kilos. So there's a massive difference there. And interesting, and I think people also this is part of their buying criteria. I know when I lived in Amsterdam, I didn't actually buy my apartment until I got confirmation that I could actually install a bath. A bath in Amsterdam is really rare, but I knew I didn't want to live in an apartment without a bath. So I needed to make sure that the floor was strong enough that it would actually take the weight of a bath, and I did put an acrylic in. But that is something that people, I think, need to consider, that particularly if they are in an apartment, that there is additional support that's required for the weight of the bath, the water, and I love how you say it, Trish, the humans in it. And you may not be able to, the floor may not be able to support the bath of your choice. And I know when our clients are looking at stone baths, it's always make sure that you've actually got enough support in the floor to be able to take that bath. So it's a really good point. And it was just really interesting hearing what you said about how many kilos and what the difference is enormous. So just because you love it and just because you want it, it doesn't necessarily mean your structure, your building can take it.
And that goes with the first floor level as well. If the bath's on a first floor in a 2-story house, for example, you'd need to make sure that the floor is reinforced enough and strong enough to hold it in that situation as well.
Exactly. Absolutely. So Cathryn, you mentioned before, my ears pricked up about the limestone bath.
Yeah, so there's another material which is luxury limestone, and from a heat perspective particularly, like that's a beautiful surface. It's a bit more of a luxury material as well, but when they've done research on which baths retain heat, because we do get that question a bit, the luxury limestone is the one that really holds it a bit more than the other materials. With the other ones, there is a bit of a difference, but it's not a huge difference. This would just give you a bit more warmth in the bath. And if you want to sit in there for a long time like I do, then that's a nice thing to know, I think.
I think the heat retention is quite an important point, because in an acrylic bath, you're constantly filling up the hot water because it's not retaining its heat very well. So if you're thinking about this from a water saving and also a sustainability perspective, you're not wasting resources by having a bath that's actually able to retain its heat. So I think that is another consideration. If sustainability is a big thing, you're saving water, but you also just don't have to keep putting the tap on, and also the risk of scalding or whatever, because the bath is actually retaining that heat for you. So limestone, I'm guessing, is your premium end from a price point perspective?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and it would look absolutely gorgeous.
It does look absolutely stunning, but it is a bit more of a premium decision, I suppose.
Absolutely. If it's a feature, it's a good consideration. Any other materials that we need to cover off, ladies?
I think that's pretty much covered them all, actually.
They're the ones that I'm aware of. So the limestone is a new one, but that's natural stone. But I've never seen them in the limestone, so that's one I'll be looking at for as well. So in terms of, and we've touched on this a little bit about already, freestanding baths, but what determined the type of bath that you should be buying? So we've talked about not only the material aspects, but then also the type of bath. What are some of the things that you find, or that you're guiding your customers and clients on, in terms of what type of bath they should be buying or looking at as a consideration?
Well, I think definitely, as you've mentioned as well, from a size perspective, that is definitely a big one. Shape is also something to be considered. So if you're doing a bathroom with sort of more rounder features in like the tapware or the showers, a lot of the time people might like to look at something that's a bit more rounded as far as the bath shape goes. So that's really a big one, because then it just really ties everything in, being a really big, like large item in the bathroom. The comfort, definitely. So we always get people, it's a bit of fun actually, when we have people in here, we're always suggesting that they hop in the bath and give it a bit of a try, and often you can't get them out quickly because they're just pretty comfortable and happy lying in there for a bit.
Lovely.
So conversations about baths while they're sitting in it, which is a good sign, but it definitely can change people's mind if they've seen something that they really love, but then they hop in it and it's not that comfortable. So the comfort side of things is really important. Sometimes the style as well. I do find some people just like a flat sort of lined bath, and what I mean by that would be opposite, is some of them actually go up on a bit of a curve so that you can lie in it. And that's a real personal choice, because I find that some people love that and some people don't. So yeah, that can come into it as well. And also another thing would be if you wanted it to be a shower bath. So like with an inset bath, if you want that to be able to be a shower bath, it needs to have a flat end as well as an inclined end, so that you can enjoy it as a soaker, but you can stand under the shower at the other end and use it in that sort of practical way as well.
That's a really important point. And again, those sorts of baths in Europe are huge, because to have the luxury to have a separate shower and a bath is, all, you know, unless you've got a really big house, most people live in apartments. So having a bath is a luxury, but then you'd absolutely have to have the shower. So having that flat piece at the shower end makes it so much easier to have a bit more space, or you just have a bit more space when you're showering. But the amount of people, again, to your point about testing the bath out as well, that they're not actually feeling that that's a necessity. And then when they go to stand in the bath, they're almost up on an angle because there's just not enough space to actually stand properly under the shower. So it really is critical to have that sort of bath if you're having a shower, if you want it to work properly.
Yeah, because there are some inset baths that are quite narrow and some that are wider. So if you're meant to be standing under it to use it as a shower bath rather than just a bath on its own, that's definitely very important, the width of the bath, because you want to feel comfortable and not too cramped.
And it's definitely something that we always recommend. And I know we spoke about this and had a bit of a giggle on the last episode about testing out the loos and sitting on the loo and all that sort of stuff. But the bath, it is such a personal decision. And when you're actually looking at the photos in a brochure or even online, when you're looking at it from an aerial perspective, you think, oh yeah, that looks quite nice. And it's got a bit of an indentation here and it looks fine, but you can't possibly know how comfortable that's going to be until you lie in it. And it's interesting. It also depends. It's a personal preference, like a sofa, that the male may like a particular lying position, the female might like another. And so you both need to be able to test that out, or whoever's going to be the main user of that bath, to make sure. But I would always say you cannot possibly buy a bath if you're going to use it without lying in it first. So you need to go into the showroom. You can't pick it from a photo. Such a personal experience.
It is. I would like to add, there's definitely some baths have a better lumbar support for your back compared to others. It's also, as you said, you know, it's a very, very personal experience. So if you like reading, then you need to try the bath to make sure you can rest your elbows comfortably on the bath, on the edge, so you can read. Whereas, you know, if you're not a reader in the bath and you like to relax, to just make sure you can, you know, rest your head comfortably on it as well. So definitely it needs to be suitable to what you want to experience.
I'm working with a client at the moment, and her whole goal is, I need to be able to get in the bath and I want the water up to my neck. So for her, having that upright experience is going to be shocking. She wants to be able to lie back and just be immersed in the water. She needs, you know, a bath that's quite deep, but also the way it's shaped so that she can really lie down as much as possible. So really important to go and test it out. Now, interestingly, about the shape that you were talking about, Cathryn, I'm such a big advocate for creating a softness in all of our spaces, not just the bathroom. So when you're talking about the shape, I think that anything that is going to provide some sort of curve, some sort of organic shape in the bathroom, I think the bath is one of those really good opportunities to do that, because everything else is so rectangular. Our shower is going to be square or rectangular. The vanity is, you know, sometimes now, and I'm really encouraging it, and it's very on trend at the moment, is having a circular or an oval mirror. But the bath is such a great opportunity to create some sort of shape that is not rectangular. So having those egg-shaped baths, and again, having the freestanding bath in there, really softens that whole space and makes it feel more relaxing just by having the curves.
And it can be just a really lovely feature in the bathroom. Like
absolutely. But it is really nice for me to see, because I've been so passionate about this for a long time, that these things are now more readily accessible. Having anything that's got a curve, not only in our basins, but in the mirrors, and now in our bars, particularly with the egg shape, that it is really coming to the fore, which is lovely. So in terms of pricing, I know that we talked about freestanding bars, these corner bars being more expensive than, say, an inset bath. What sort of percentage, or if you want to talk then monetary figures, are clients or people looking at in terms of how much more are they going to pay for a freestanding bath?
Okay, so if we sort of start from the bottom and work up.
Sounds good.
If you had an inset bath, so that's in a hob or shower bath type of scenario, the acrylic versions are probably around about, say, your 450 sort of level. You wanted to do something that was pressed steel and something that was, like we were sort of saying, scratch resistant, stain resistant, and all of those good qualities, you know, for the integrity of the bath lasting a long time, and good warranties as well. That's probably more around the sort of 1,1700 mark, depending on the length of the bath.
Of course.
When you go to back to wall baths or the back to corner or freestanding, that will really depend on the material. So if it's an acrylic bath, that's probably around that sort of 1,800 mark, around about, I would say.
Yeah.
But then when you get to different materials, like the solid surface, for example, which is your matte look, again, probably depending on the length, you're probably looking at around about sort of 3,600-ish with the ranges that we have anyway. They vary from place to place, but that's a good benchmark. The luxury limestone is probably a bit more than that again, so more like your sort of 5,000, 6,000 sort of investment. However, we do actually have something that's interesting. If you're looking for matte, but you don't want to pay the price for solid surface, we've got an acrylic bath, which is actually available in matte. So it can be matte black on the outside and matte white on the inside, or just matte white the whole way around, quite comfortable. And that kind of comes in at around about 2,200, 2,300. So then you can achieve the matte look without really paying for it, if you like.
Yeah. And that I know is something that we've spoken about when I've been running events at the showroom, about the matte versus the gloss. So you might have a gloss basin, or it's not a matte basin. Can you combine those? My thoughts are the bath is almost like it's almost like a feature in itself. So I really don't have an issue with a matte bath, and then you've got a basin that's not necessarily matte. I don't think that they necessarily have to match completely. I quite like having the different textural elements. I don't know what your thoughts are, or where people are leaning.
I would agree, actually. So, I mean, keep in mind too that most of the time your toilet will be, like the pan, if there's a pan in the room, will be glossy.
Correct.
Most of the time. And I agree with you that we've had some displays here where you've got like a solid surface bench with a gloss sort of shiny basin, and they actually work really nicely together. It does add that extra depth and element to what you're looking at, and you probably don't even realise. So I go through that with clients a lot, and then they feel a lot more comfortable about that because they can see for themselves that it works.
Yeah, and I know you've got the display in the showroom, and it does work really well. But I think I know I'll take this off piste a little bit, but sometimes matchy is actually really boring, and so. Of course, we need to have our accessories matching, and there's certain things within your home that do need to match. And sometimes I relay this to clients with regards to your furniture. You don't need to have all your furniture coming from the same store, in the same brand, in the same timber, in the same range. It's almost like it feels like you're not comfortable enough to be able to mix things up. And I think it's the same with the matte bath. It's adding another textural element. It's adding another piece of interest. It doesn't have to, not everything has to match. And we're even using coloured basins now. So they don't have to match the bath. I mean, it's actually a talking and a feature point in itself. So people should feel a little bit more confident, and it's great that you're able to tell your customers as well that, and show them that it can look still really sophisticated by having different materials.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are there any other buying criteria? What do people need to know then if they're going to choose the bath? Why would they choose one bath over another? I think we've talked about, the durability. We've talked about, obviously, price will come into this, the freestanding element, the shapes, whether you want, you know, a back to wall or you can get a back to wall or a freestanding. Is there anything else that we need to let our listeners know? The core issue, the core buying criteria. If we're looking about like a really good quality bath, you've talked about the pressed metal where they've got finishes on them that are obviously superior in scratch resistance, superior in UV resistance. Are there other things that would dictate then or determine a really good quality bath, good quality surface?
Within steel baths, I would only say the thickness of steel.
Yes, like what, like sinks?
Yes, big. You know, there's some that are 1 mm thick and there's 3.5 mm thick. So the thickness of the bath is definitely a big consideration. But apart from comfort, I think quality of like all the acrylics is really, really good compared to what it used to be. So acrylic baths are safe to have. With solid surface, that is one to be wary of. That there's a lot of suppliers out there that don't sell the highest quality of solid surface. They don't use the highest quality to build the bath. So they can, you know, sometimes turn out to be brittle and, you know, can over a period of time get discolored due to rays.
There's too much. They use a lot of resin. So the more resin, the more likely it is to yellow.
Yeah.
So
that's a good one, actually. You really need to be careful about the integrity of the solid surface because solid surface is just not the same everywhere. So that's really important.
And that comes up with bench tops as well. The more resin, and particularly if the sun's hitting it, the more likely it is to turn yellow. So you need a more pure solid surface, which has got a higher proportion of minerals.
Absolutely, spot on. So those are the only considerations, according to me.
And I think, you know, we've sort of talked about it a bit, but it's definitely important as to whether you want to invest in something that you can either, you know, repair if that's important to you, or like with the pressed steel bath, that it's the one that's not going to scratch or what have you. So that's going to be really important.
I think if we're talking about forever homes and the difficulty of replacing your bath, for me is a no-brainer that you need to invest, particularly in the family bathroom, as you said, rather than, you know, where it's an adults only bath, you can get away with doing an acrylic bath. But if it's in the family bathroom, it's going to get knocked around about a lot. It's going to be where the most people are going to be using it. I think that that's where you really need to invest in a surface that is not going to be as susceptible to scratching, because kids will take stuff in there. If I think about the concoctions my daughters are making and it ends up in the bath, you've got to future-proof it, because replacing a bath is no easy feat. It's like replacing your floor. It's just a nightmare. So I think that that's really good advice. And it's great to know that the pressed metal has really come leaps and bounds in terms of the other qualities that it's producing, and also with the acrylic. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, if there isn't anything else, I think we've covered quite a lot about baths. I think you'll have a lot of people coming in lying in baths.
That's right. That's right. And we enjoy that. It's a lot of fun. So
people are going to feel funny about it, and they might, like on the loo, they're going to feel funny about going into a showroom, taking their shoes off or whatever and getting into a bath. It's like buying a bed. You've got to lie on it. And, you know, when you go into a showroom for a bed, there's lots of opportunities for you to go and lie on the bed. So you need to go and lie in the bath. And I won't let our clients buy bath unless they actually, well, I don't not let them, but it is highly advised that they go and lie in the bath, because no two baths are alike.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of the process as well. I mean, it's a big process, and you might as well enjoy the parts that you really can enjoy, I think. So we try and make it a bit of fun when people come in, and they just feel a lot more comfortable about what they're doing.
Do they get champagne so they can lie in the bath with champagne?
I would say yes. I would join them, but...
Yeah. And have you ever had, I'm just curious, have you ever had couples get in the bath so they know they can both fit?
Absolutely, yes. We highly recommend, if you know that it's going to be by a couple, you must get in there.
Yeah, I think that That's really important, actually. I know that was a core criteria, that you could both lie in the bath, because sometimes the bath has got a really nice sloping end on one end and the other end is not designed for another person to lie in it. So there's all these things. So yes, you both got to get in the bath is the message.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks again, ladies. It's been fruitful and also quite funny as well when we're talking about people having to come into the showroom. So thanks again for sharing all your fabulous knowledge.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of My Forever Home. If you're ready to renovate or build a new home and you need help to create a beautiful and functional forever home, you can book a chat with me directly at whitepebbleinteriors.com.au/chat. Have a great day.